His phone had no service, no signal, no bars, nothing. And yet, somehow, the voice coming through his speakers would not stop talking. Do not go home. Do not go home. He was a cop, a man trained to stay calm under pressure, a man who had stared down dangerous situations more times than he could count. But sitting in that car, in the middle of nowhere, listening to his GPS beg him to turn around, something deep in his gut told him that whatever was waiting for him at home, he was not ready for it. He went anyway. He should have listened. There are mornings that feel like a gift, the kind where you wake up before everyone else and the house is still quiet, and for just a few minutes the world belongs entirely to you. That's exactly how this particular Saturday began for a man we'll call Daniel. Daniel was the kind of husband and father who took his role seriously, not in a rigid, by-the-book way, but in the quiet, consistent way that matters most. The kind of man who noticed when his family needed something before they even asked. On this morning, he decided to make them breakfast. Not cereal, not toast, a real breakfast. Pancakes golden at the edges, bacon sizzling in the pan, eggs scrambled exactly the way his daughter liked them, glasses of fresh orange juice standing at attention beside each plate like little soldiers. The smell did exactly what he hoped it would. Within minutes, his daughter shuffled into the kitchen, still half asleep, her head barely staying upright as she dropped in her chair. She was fighting sleep with everything she had, and losing badly. Daniel watched her and smiled to himself. Then his wife appeared. She didn't say anything at first. She just slipped behind him and pressed a quick kiss to his cheek. Then she stepped back and looked him up and down with that particular expression, somewhere between amusement and genuine affection, before complimenting his apron. It read, "Kiss the chef." He had worn it as a joke, obviously, but standing there in his kitchen with his family drifting in around him, breakfast on the table, the morning wide open and unhurried, Daniel felt something rare. Contentment. Pure, uncomplicated contentment. He had no way of knowing that this moment was the last completely normal thing that would happen to him all day. The vibration hit just as he was setting the last plate down. His phone buzzed in his pocket, once, twice, and then again. He already knew before he even looked at the screen that it wasn't good news. Good news doesn't come in threes. It was the sheriff. The man barely gave Daniel a chance to say hello before launching into it. Armed robbery. Assault. A few miles outside of town. All hands needed. Come now. Daniel looked at his wife across the kitchen. She looked back at him. He hung up and started apologizing before he had even formed a complete sentence. His wife stopped him. She told him she understood. She always did. But understanding something and being happy about it are two very different things, and both of them knew that. He rushed toward the door. Just before he stepped outside, she grabbed the back of his shirt collar and pulled him back. One last kiss. She told him she had a headache coming on and that she and her daughter were probably going to spend the day napping and doing nothing in particular. Daniel nodded, told her to rest, and walked out into the morning. He had no idea that he would spend the next several hours desperately trying to get back to her. The drive out to the scene felt wrong almost immediately. Not dramatically wrong. Not an obvious way. Just off. The kind of feeling you get when a room is slightly too quiet or when something familiar looks just a little bit different than it should. Daniel couldn't place it. He told himself it was just frustration. He was missing a Saturday with his family for what had better be a good reason. It wasn't. By the time he reached the location the sheriff had described, the two men responsible for the robbery and assault had already been handcuffed, loaded up, and transported to the station. The scene was quiet. Officers were milling around with nothing urgent to do. The whole thing was wrapped up before Daniel had even parked his car. He was furious. He found the sheriff and made sure the man knew exactly how he felt about being dragged out on his day off for a case that had resolved itself before he arrived. The sheriff apologized. Apparently, they had expected the situation to escalate, to turn into a chase, possibly a standoff. Instead, the moment the suspects saw flashing blue lights, they surrendered without a word. Cut and dry, the sheriff said. Daniel breathed. He reminded himself that it was still morning. He could still go back, still salvage the day. He would walk back through that door, and his daughter would still be nodding off somewhere, and his wife would be curled up under a blanket, headache and all, and everything would be fine. 2 hours in, he pulled over. He tried calling his wife 4 times. Each call died the moment it connected, replaced by a flat, mechanical dial tone that felt completely wrong. He tried restarting his phone, hoping a reboot might knock whatever was happening loose. The phone came back on. The Maps app was still open. He had never asked it to stay open. He had never asked it to go where it was going. But there it was, fully active, a little blue dot inching along a route he had never selected. He pinched the map open to see the full picture, to see where exactly it was taking him. He was 90 miles from home. 90 miles. He had been driving for 2 hours and had ended up further away than when he started. He stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he did the only logical thing he could think of. He deleted the home address and typed in the name of a grocery store in town. Somewhere familiar. Somewhere he could orient himself from. The GPS accepted the new destination without argument. It took him there. Nearly 3 hours later, he rolled into town, exhausted and shaken, but finally on recognizable ground. He could see buildings he knew, streets he had driven 100 times. He exhaled for what felt like the first time all day. He pulled out of the parking lot and pointed the car toward home. And that's when Siri spoke again. Turn around. He kept driving. Turn around. He turned the radio up. Do not go home. Do not go home. Do not go home. He grabbed his phone, pressed the power button. Nothing happened. The screen stayed on. The voice kept going. He pressed harder, longer. Still nothing. Do not go home. He shoved the phone into his pocket, rolled the windows down, and turned the radio up as loud as it would go. Let it drown her out. Let it fill the car with something, anything other than those words. Do not go home. Even through the music, he could still hear it. He pulled into his driveway. The house looked exactly the same as when he had left it. Same curtains, same front door, same potted plant his wife kept meaning to water more often. Everything in its place. The phone would not stop. Get back in the car. Do not go home. Turn around. He got out anyway. He put the key in the front door, pushed it open, and stepped inside. The house was completely silent. Not the comfortable silence of a lazy Saturday afternoon, but something heavier, something that pressed against his ears and made him stand still just inside the doorway, without quite knowing why. He called his wife's name. Nothing. He called again, louder. Nothing. He moved deeper into the house, and almost immediately he felt it. A dizziness, subtle at first, that made the walls seem just slightly unsteady. Then a dull, spreading ache behind his eyes. Then nausea, rolling up from somewhere low in his stomach, climbing. He told himself it was just the stress of the day. The driving, the hours lost. He pressed forward. He found them in the bedroom. His daughter was curled against his wife's side, the way she always slept when she climbed into their bed after a bad dream. His wife's arm was wrapped around her. The television was on. Paw Patrol played in the background, the cheerful colors and voices filling a room that felt absolutely nothing like cheerful. He called their names. They did not move. He crossed the room and touched his wife's arm. She was cold. He touched his daughter's cheek. Also cold. He screamed their names. He shook them, gently at first and then desperately. The nausea came back, harder this time, and the dizziness with it. The room felt like it was tilting beneath him. He got his phone out and called the sheriff. He barely got the words out. The sheriff said he was 20 minutes away. 20 minutes. Daniel stood in that bedroom, staring at his wife and his daughter, the television still playing, the room still tilting, and he tried to think. Clearly, he needed to get them out of there. He knew that. Something was wrong with the air. Something was wrong with the house. He needed to move them, but his legs felt like they were full of concrete. His thoughts were coming slower. He just needed a moment to rest, a moment to gather himself before he acted. Just a few seconds. He would figure it out. He would fix it as soon as he woke up. Here is what the evidence would later suggest. The wife had mentioned a headache that morning. A headache, pale skin, fatigue. Classic early symptoms. By the time Daniel arrived home, she and their daughter had been exposed for hours. Carbon monoxide. Colorless. Odorless. Silent. A broken or malfunctioning heating unit can flood a sealed house with it over hours without giving any indication that anything is wrong. You simply grow tired. Then you grow still. Daniel had been outside all day. He had fresh air for hours. But the moment he stepped back into that house, even in a short time before he found them, the exposure began pulling him under too. As for the GPS, investigators would find nothing wrong with it. No malfunction, no hack, no explanation for why the app continued to function without service, or why the voice shifted from directions to warnings. Some of the responding officers quietly noted that the extended detour, as maddening as it was, may have kept Daniel alive. Had he come home earlier, he would have been inside for hours alongside his family. He would have been just as cold, just as still. Whether the GPS saved his life, or simply malfunctioned in a way that happened to save his life, is a question nobody has been able to answer. As for his wife and daughter, the sheriff arrived within his promised 20 minutes. Emergency services were called. Both were pulled from the house and treated immediately. They survived. They all made it out. But here is the question that has stayed with everyone who has heard this story. Daniel spent hours fighting that GPS. He was furious at it. He thought something was broken. He thought he was losing his mind. He ignored every warning it gave him and nearly walked straight into the thing it was trying to keep him away from. How many times in your own life have you pushed back against something that was trying to protect you without ever realizing it? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story affected you, share it with someone. Because sometimes the most important warnings come from the places we least expect them.